And I know, especially here on Saints Unscripted, I'm the old lady, and I'm having conversations that are kind of looking back on some of my life experiences that I've had. But I try to have conversations here at the middle on the yellow couch that I wish I had had. I wish someone would have sat down with me and talked to me about self-worth, and when people are gossiping or saying mean things, or you don't get invited to something that you really wish you had been included in. I wish someone would have had conversations around depression and anxiety, because I saw that playing out at home. I wish someone would have talked more openly about some of the things I was wrestling with. Hello and welcome to The Middle. I'm grateful to have this few minutes to talk with you about something that I don't think is unique just to someone that puts content out on YouTube or on Instagram or any of the social media platforms. I think this is a topic that we can all relate to, no matter what stage of life you're on and no matter what experiences you're having. And the topic that I wanted to share some thoughts around are about the haters and the trolls and what gifts and lessons they've taught me. And I'm not trying to be sarcastic, because I really have been reflecting the last week or so about what I have learned from the last few years of being more public and having various video shows and podcasts that I've hosted and speaking and being on TV and radio. What's unique about what I'm doing is that I'm purposefully putting myself out there in hopes to help in the ways that I'm trying to help, which for me goes back to, I want to help with mental health. I want to discuss faith in a more expansive way that's more inclusive. I want to foster connection and hope. And that's kind of my why behind writing and hosting these shows. But I've also realized that there's a cost, and there's a cost for all of us when we choose to try to connect and show up and share a part of ourselves, whether it's at work, whether it's with our family, whether you're writing books or hosting podcasts, posting videos on YouTube or not. We put ourselves out there at various levels. And when we do that, there's a risk. And I could write a book on the funny, not so funny, hurtful comments that I get out on these social media platforms. I don't want to be like victim, overly dramatic, or poor me, woe is me. That's really not my intent for this conversation today. I really have learned some important lessons about my worth and my why. And it's come because there's been this opposition. And when there's an oppositional force, there's always the other side. So I want to mention the love that I feel. I feel like overall, the people I connect with on social media are so loving. They trust me. I trust them. We try to share authentically. We talk about really topics that are emotional and complicated, like suicide, infertility, chronic illness, and faith, just to name a few of the things that specifically we've tried to tackle here at The Middle. And you receive me with such love and acceptance. And so many of you message about how these conversations on the yellow couch have helped you, how various other content that I've created has been a support for you. And I don't take your love for granted. I feel like there has been so much support and encouragement, and I really need that. But I've also learned that if I'm going to do this work, I've had to keep a soft heart, but also develop a thick skin. And that's kind of tricky to do sometimes. I have to care about you, but not care so much that it freezes me in my tracks from sharing. Because there has been some really hurtful things that have often come across on channels and on posts. And now I can laugh about them, but sometimes they're a little stingy. Like my favorite one was one day I was called a murderer, and that I should die because I was killing everyone's faith. And then my other probably top 3 comments were the day that I was told that I have no right to talk about faith or scriptures because I'm a woman. And most of the time when they're that extreme, I kind of can laugh because I feel like I know where to put that, right? I know whose opinion really matters to me. But there's all this other middle that's just these feedback that's lukewarm, it's not helpful, it's critical. What are you doing? Why are you on this channel? Why are you sharing your opinions about this? Or the other comments that I get that are I think the person thinks they're being helpful, but they're trying to correct me or put me in my place. And I've had to learn some skills around responding to that because I want to connect with those that are watching my videos or reading my books. But if I give away my power, I would stay in bed. Honestly, I would never put myself out there. I would never do another post on social media. I would never share what's in my heart and my feelings and thoughts on the matter. I had someone ask me the other day, so I saw you have a new show and like sometimes you have guests and sometimes it's just you. Yeah. And then that awkward pause of like, so when it's just you, are you just like talking? Yeah. And I was waiting for them to say something nice, like, it's super cool, or I loved what you said about, unemployment or homeschooling. And they said nothing afterwards. And I was just like, okay, thanks. I didn't know what to respond. So there's a lot of that as well. And I've had to go back to what my why is, especially when there is negative comments or there's hurtful comments. And I also have to be really careful because sometimes there's so much love and appreciation and people are so grateful for everything I'm doing and they praise and support and love on me. And that can be just as addictive, right? Or triggering. And that can't be my why either. I have really tried to be clear that I know who my boss is. For me, it's God, that I'm trying to show up and have conversations that may not be happening in the same way out in the world. And I value doing that. And I also, with the death of my sister with suicide, I got really clear that I want to talk about connection. I want to talk about faith, and I want to talk about mental health. And I want to talk about our sense of worth in a way that hopefully blesses someone's life and even supports them in struggling through some really hard things. And so one of the tips I wanted to share today, and I hope it helps you, even if you're not a public figure or you're not hosting a podcast, but it helps you at work or with extended family. If you're watching this and you're in high school or junior high, I think that's the time where I wish I had had these conversations. And I know, especially here on Saints Unscripted, I'm the old lady and I'm having conversations that are kind of looking back on some of my life experiences that I've had. But I try to have conversations here at the middle on the yellow couch that I wish I had had. I wish someone would have sat down with me and talked to me about self-worth, and when people are gossiping or saying mean things, or you don't get invited to something that you really wish you had been included in. I wish someone would have had conversations around depression and anxiety because I saw that playing out at home. I wish someone would have talked more openly about some of the things I was wrestling with. So I hope if you find this episode and you're not doing what I'm doing, but your mission looks really different, you're creating other things in the world, and you're sensitive to the fact that not everyone loves it and that you get rejected, that you will be benefited by some of the things I'm going to share today. One of the first lessons I had to learn is that I had to know my why. Because if my why was about praise or the number of likes or views, I would have given up. And so I had to know what my why is, and I have to keep returning to that. So I think whatever you're creating out there, whatever you're trying to do, wherever you're trying to show up, whether it's in sports or you're developing a talent or you're working on a career that feels really frustrating and you get a lot of criticism for what you're trying to create or do, go back to what your why is. The second thing is that I have to remind myself this every day. I wrote a book called You Are More Than Enough, You Are Magnificent, and it actually won a state award in Utah. And I still have to go back to the things that I learned writing that book, is that my worth is not dependent upon views, likes, book sales, choices my kids make, what my house looks like. My worth and your worth is non-negotiable. And it's not based on if you win an award or if you get straight A's or you get picked for the varsity football team, whatever that is. For you and me, our worth has to be non-negotiable. Our worth is based on the fact that we just are. We're alive. We're of worth because we are who we are. And that we're all on this progression path of where we're developing our skills and our talents, our careers, and we're trying to make an impact in the world. But if we're not careful, our worth can become about something external and not internal. The next thought I wanted to share with you is that it feels good to be praised, But just like the haters can't be the judge of your life, the praise also can't be. And so one of the things that I try to remind myself is that it's just news. And so when I wake up and my phone is exploding because everyone loves the content I created the day before, I try to send that back to God. Like, I'm grateful for the help that it's providing, but please help me not be hooked into that. The same is for the hate and for the criticism and for the lukewarm response of, like, so you're just sitting on a couch talking? Like, what do you know about anything? Well, guess what? I've never said that I have all the answers. I show up here on this yellow couch because I want to have the conversation. I want to share some of my own wrestles with you. But I know that we learn by connecting and we learn by having these conversations, and that we don't learn when we keep it all inside and we isolate. That's my why. And so what's really helpful for me is, just like, I don't want to give my power away to the people that I'm not their favorite choice, or they don't resonate with what I'm sharing. I also don't want to get too dependent upon the praise, because that's fleeting as well. I think we see that play out in Hollywood all the time, when the hot movie star at the time, or the great professional athlete at the time, right? That there's all this praise and everyone's so excited about everything they're doing. And then they lose, or they do a bad movie, or they release a record album that, do we even call them record albums anymore? I don't know. Singles? And no one likes it, and everyone's critical of it. That those artists and creators and athletes and politicians and people that we admire, there's a part of them that I think they feel this internal compass that it isn't about the praise or the criticism. And so that's easy to be saying it right now while I'm sitting here with you and I'm feeling safe. It's much harder when I happen to read a comment that hurts. And that brings me to my next suggestion. It's really important to surround yourself with that trusted tribe. It doesn't have to be a big tribe, but one or two people that you know you. They know your why, they know your passion, they know your mission, and they want to support you in your mission or your progression or your creation. Those are the people I go to when it feels stingy, when the haters and their criticism is louder than my why, or that the scale doesn't feel very balanced, that there's not as much love and there's a lot more criticism. I go back to those friends, those tribe members, and they remind me. They'll tell me all the time, like, we know who you are. We see what good you've done. I also want to suggest something here. When you feel really good and you feel like, wait, I showed up authentically and I created something I'm really proud of, and I feel like I did something today that has made the world a better place, I try to share those moments with my tribe. Because I will often tell them, okay, the day I call you and, like, I don't want to get out of bed because I'm feeling so insecure, I want you to reflect back to me what I'm sharing with you today. And they'll laugh and I laugh, but it's really kind of serious, that I want to celebrate myself. And when I do something that's vulnerable, when I push myself and I create something out there that feels risky, I feel good about it, I try to share that with my tribe, because they're the ones that will remind me. They're the ones that are like, get back up, get back out there. Sorry the haters showed up to hate today, but you know who you are, and you know that you're making a difference, and you know you serve God. Those are the things my tribe says back to me. Maybe your tribe's going to say something else. Maybe your tribe's going to encourage you when you're homeschooling. Maybe your tribe's going to help you with your ADD, and you're in college and you didn't do great on another test and you're struggling with focus. And they're the ones that are going to help turn you back to yourself and help you remember. Because it's so easy to hear the voices out in the world that are going to pull you down. And it's so easy to sometimes think those voices, they come inside and that they're the truth. And so my tip for you is to make sure you surround yourself with people that believe in you, that celebrate you because you take those risks. I don't know if my daughter's going to be okay with this, but I didn't ask her permission, but I'll let her know before it airs. She just did a voice recital. And she's got a beautiful singing voice. That's not my talent. But she wasn't super comfortable with the idea of doing the recital. And she loves to be in musical theater. She doesn't get nervous hardly at all when there's a big cast, right? When she's part of an ensemble. But when it's just her on the stage and she's auditioning or she's singing a solo, it's nerve-wracking, which you can probably relate to that. Well, she had her performance last night and it wasn't as good as during rehearsal. And she was feeling really bad about that. And I kept encouraging her that I was just so happy she had shown up. That yes, maybe her voice cracked, or maybe it didn't sound as good as it had during rehearsal, but I was just proud of her for showing up. The sad part to me about the culture that we're living in right now is that there are creators and there's consumers. And there's a lot of people out there that it almost feels like their full-time job is to criticize the creators, to sit around and leave mean comments on people's posts or videos, or to criticize. And we would never say face-to-face to each other what sometimes we post about each other. And so my invitation is to consider, are you a creator or a consumer? I rarely, if ever, I don't even know if I've ever gone on someone's video and left a mean comment or posted on their post or written a review about someone. That's not my job, is to review, because I know what it takes to try. I know what it takes to create. I know what it costs me, vulnerable wise, to share with you part of who I am. And so last night, even though I'm not a vocalist, I knew what it cost my daughter because I'm her mom. I've watched her in rehearsals. I see when she goes to lessons. I see how hard she tries. And I know the disappointment of like what she showed up with was not what she hoped it had been. None of us are. None of us are putting out there the things that I never walk away from writing a book or sharing a podcast or hosting a video show or interviewing even a guest here on The Middle and think, okay, that was perfect. I have nothing else to learn. I figured it all out. That was the most perfect conversation I've ever put out there. And I'm so proud of that. But I am learning to give myself the grace to learn. And I'm learning that just showing up is worth celebrating, and just sharing part of who I am with you is a risk, but it's worth it because I'm trying to foster connection and I'm trying to share uplifting content. And so if you find yourself in whatever circle of influence you have, feeling that vulnerability hangover, you showed up, you shared like my daughter did last night, and then the next day you wake up and you're like replaying in your mind how you failed, how you didn't do your best, I want you to give yourself some grace and be really careful about the critical voices. Maybe they're not outside. Maybe they're not posting on a video of you. Maybe they're not sending you like an anonymous text about how bad you did. But maybe the critical voices, the haters, are inside your head. And so my invitation to you is to be really careful that you are grace-filled. That we need a world where artists and creators and musicians and athletes and YouTubers and podcast hosts and authors and vocalists and accountants and teachers show up, and that we give space in our culture for imperfection. Because there's something to me really beautiful about the fact that our offerings are unique and different. I may not be your favorite whatever, and that's okay. I don't have to be everyone's first choice to still have permission to show up. And can we do something about that within our own circles, whether it's in our classrooms, in our work environments, whether it's in our families and our neighborhoods, where we don't allow for this constant like blood sport of criticizing each other, of hating on each other, of posting hateful comments to each other. Like there's so much of that I know it's become a little bit of a white noise for me, because I almost feel like it's not changing anyone's opinion. When was the last time you went on like Facebook or Twitter and you saw this big debate going on around politics or whatever it is, and you see someone's opinion change? And so the next time you feel like the hate out there is overwhelming, I want you to just tone it down and realize that those people are going to show up, and they almost do it like for fun. And that there's so much we can do to foster love, connection, and hope. And so go back to your tribe. Go back to the people that are going to support you in showing up in a vulnerable way. The most impactful movies, conversations, books I've read, and posts I've read, or videos I've watched on YouTube are the people that are imperfectly showing up saying, this is who I am. Yep. And I don't have all the answers, but I wanted to share a part of my life with you. And I am changed by that. But we've got to do a better job of creating space for that. So I hope this episode is a love note to all the haters out there, that don't really enjoy what I create out there. Thank you for teaching me. Thank you for helping me learn that my worth has to be based on something bigger than likes and views and comments on YouTube. Thank you for teaching me that I have to really be clear on my why, and that it's okay to not be perfect, that I can keep getting up each day and showing up and sharing out in the world in the way that I value showing up, and that not everyone's going to love it, and that I'm going to survive that. I wish I had known that in junior high. I wish I had known that I was going to survive those bad days where I found out that so-and-so didn't like me and someone else was talking about me. That I wish someone could have sat that girl down and said, you're going to be okay. And you're learning about yourself and you're learning some important lessons through this. It didn't feel like that at the time. It doesn't feel fun. Please don't get me wrong. I don't love it. I'd much rather read all your loving comments. And so please know that I appreciate those. But I also try to not become dependent upon that as well, because the praise of the world can come and go. And whatever is the most popular and most exciting of the day, I know that that can change. And so I'm trying to show up authentically, and I really want you to. I want to see what you are creating. I want to see your posts. I want to see the songs you're writing. I want to see the books you're going to create and the ways in which you're going to change the world. But if we're so afraid that we're going to be hated on if we show up, then what are we going to miss out on? What artists are not going to create, and what singers are not going to sing, and what teachers are not going to teach. And so my invitation, and I hope from this episode, is that you will feel of the love. There is so much love and goodness out there. There are so many people out there that are cheering you on, that are saying, please create, please share a part of you with us, even if it's not everyone, that's okay. So thank you for supporting the show, for supporting me, for sharing these episodes of The Middle. And we hope that you'll continue to come visit us here on the Yellow Couch and support our guests that are sharing their vulnerable life experiences with each of you and with me. And thank you again for liking and subscribing and being a part of this ever-growing middle community. And we'll see you again soon.